Why is it that some people know the truth about God, but still struggle to trust Him? What if the battle isn't spiritual, but relational and neurobiological? You can believe God is trustworthy and still struggle to trust Him. Why? The answer may lie in the neurobiology of our attachments. Stay tuned. When I talk about the neurobiology of attachment, I am referring to just a very basic definition of human attachment. Simply defined, it is a deep and enduring, usually emotional, but not necessarily, a deep and enduring bond between two people. Attachment is how we learn whether or not the world is safe, whether or not there are people with whom we can build a connection, and whether or not we can trust others. Our attachment style is usually formed very early in childhood through our relationship with our primary caregivers. If they are present and attentive, we learn that the world is safe, that we can trust other people, that other people will be responsive to our needs. If, however, our primary caregivers are unavailable or abusive or neglectful, then we learn early on that the world is not safe, that it's not okay for us to have needs, that the world will not be responsive, and that there are not a lot of people we can trust. The truth about attachment is that it becomes a blueprint for how we relate to others and how we relate to God. There are different kinds of attachment. A healthy attachment we usually refer to as a secure attachment style. If somebody has a secure attachment style, they have the ability to form a healthy, trusting, stable bond with another person or in their relationship with God. But sometimes something goes wrong and we form an attachment style that is not secure. We might form an anxious attachment. In an anxious attachment, the primary concern is not being good enough, not being loved or accepted, or a fear of abandonment. The person might constantly be wondering if they're good enough, if they're likable, whether or not that other person likes them or loves them. And that translates into their relationship with God. Is God really there for me? They might also form, instead of an anxious attachment, an avoidant attachment. An avoidant attachment tends to have those fears with it, but rather than addressing it with seeking out after, anxiously seeking out after the other person, it's met with an emotional avoidance or an emotional distance. We call it the avoidant attachment style because of that. And in this attachment style, the individual tends to become very spiritually self-reliant. I can do this on my own. I've got this. They also tend to be interpersonally self-reliant. Sometimes it won't be either of those, but a mixture. Some researchers refer to this as a disorganized attachment style. Some refer to it as a mixed attachment style. But in this particular attachment style, it is both anxious and avoidant. And you get a push me, pull me dynamic. Don't leave me, go away. Or I love you, don't touch me. That's the mixed attachment style. And that individual spiritually might say, I want God, but I just don't feel safe with Him. But these attachment styles happen at the level of the brain. As children, we might have learned that relationships aren't safe, or that people are not trustworthy, or that it's not safe to be ourselves. And this phenomenon shapes the brain maps related to love and attachment. And that's what forms our attachment style. Now, if we have any style of attachment other than secure, it will affect our relationships. So, for example, we might become disproportionately wounded if we experience our partner as having kind of an off day. But here's what's happening in the brain. First, something in the environment will trigger our implicit memory. Now, explicit memory, those are the things that we can remember that we're very conscious of, what a room looked like, where we were, how old we were when something happened. But implicit memory is much more subtle, and it's not attached to those kind of meaningful memories. Rather, it's stored in our brain and in our nervous system. So a smell, a sound, a color, the taste of a particular food, the tone of somebody's voice can elicit a memory in our nervous system, even if we don't understand why that's happening. And what happens then, if we have an attachment style other than secure, is that tells the amygdala, hey, we don't think we're safe. And that upregulates the sympathetic nervous system, either sending us into a fight and flight response, or a freeze response, or a fawning response. Because your body remembers what your brain and your mind cannot fully articulate. So, how do attachment wounds show up in our faith? Well, we tend to project these safety concerns and our attachment reactions onto our view of God. So, we may have difficulty trusting God's presence. We might obey out of fear instead of out of love. We might have a performance-driven spirituality. If I don't get this right, God will reject me. Or if I don't do enough for him, he won't love me. Rather than just learning to experience and fall in love with a very present, faithful God. We might be emotionally distant in prayer. If we've learned that it's not safe to feel or to put our heart out there, we might not have yet learned how to be emotionally present in prayer. And the issue here with all of these symptoms that I'm talking about, please understand, this is not a lack of faith. It's difficulty experiencing God as safe because of things that happened way back before you even knew him. So, how do we win the battle for spiritual victory when it comes to these attachment wounds? Well, first of all, the question isn't about sin or obedience. It's about the way that our brain learned fear versus trust. And God knows that. Remember, he is a compassionate witness to your trauma. He is not demanding that you hit some perfectionistic yardstick that's not reasonable. He was there. He saw, and he wants to love you through your healing. When it comes to how these attachment wounds impact our spiritual lives, our spiritual faith, we have to remember that the spiritual victory involves learning to receive that which once felt unsafe. And to do that, we have to tell ourselves the truth about God. So we can learn secure attachment through and with God by remembering and reflecting on the ways in which he is consistent, that he is present with us, that he is persistent in his pursuit of us, and that he is faithful. I think of many examples in Scripture. Deuteronomy 31, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Or Psalm 145, the Lord is near to all who call on him and to all who call upon him in truth. And my favorite, Psalm 34, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Scripture repeatedly reminds us God is a secure base and a safe refuge. But why do we need to understand attachment? Well, because knowing the truth about God alone is not enough. Knowing about something is not the same as experiencing something. And having a head knowledge of something is not the same as your nervous system feeling safe. You can agree with truth and still not feel it. So, what does healing look like when we're processing in our spiritual journeys these attachment wounds? Well, the first thing is awareness. When you realize that you are feeling emotionally distant in prayer, that you might be guarding yourself from a faithful God, when you realize that you're tempted to perform your way into pleasing Him rather than learning just to be present with Him. When these things start to pop up for you, be able to just label it. Say, this is an attachment response. And that's okay because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and God knows how I was designed. It's okay. And then the second part is regulation. You need to learn to calm your body. And sometimes that's just a matter of saying, it's okay. I'm safe now. I am not in the situation I was when I was 4 or 5 or 7 or 10 or whatever that place was that you were really, really unsafe. And then the third part is to have corrective experiences. It is so important to find consistent, safe people and consistent, safe relationships to build our lives around. I know that's tricky. At the end of the day, we're fallen people living in a fallen world with other fallen people, and sometimes they don't get it right either. But those consistent relationships with a good, healthy church community can help us relearn that God too is safe. And then finally, repetition. Trust is built. It's not a toggle that we could just switch on or off. It takes repetition and consistent experiences for us to build trust again. Be patient with yourself. God is patient with you in this process. Now, I want to give you some simple practices, some things that you can implement to help you on this journey if you are trying to heal some attachment wounds. The first one is, if you don't do this already, and many of us don't always do this, is to learn to pray honestly. A lot of times we think we have to have the perfect prayer, we have to get the words right. We're so glad nobody can hear this. We're focused on something that's like eloquence. But God just wants honesty. That's all we need to do. And that learning just to be honest with Him will help regulate our nervous systems. Slow down in God's presence. Learn to be present with Him, not performing for Him, but being present with Him. And then start to notice things in your spiritual life or in your church family, other things that are triggers for those attachment styles. At the beginning of this video, I used an example of how if your attachment style is something other than secure, something really small like a friend or a partner having an off day might trigger anxiety or avoidance in you as you think, oh, this is it. I'm going to be abandoned now. Well, start to notice those triggers. That's your implicit memory telling you something. Remember that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you can use those implicit memories to aid you in your healing journey. And then focus not on how you can't feel, oh, I don't feel God, I don't feel Him present, but rather focus on the fact that you know because He promised you that He is there. You might want to memorize a couple of scriptures to help you with this. My dear brother, my dear sister, I just want to encourage you. If you have ever felt like you're failing spiritually, my guess is you probably are not. But the good news is you can heal those wounds. Psalm 147 reminds us that He heals the brokenhearted and He binds up their wounds. God is not just calling you to believe in Him. He is inviting you to experience Him as safe. As you walk each day with Him, trusting that He will make all things new as you surrender to His safe presence and His promise of love and protection. I hope this has been helpful, good news to you. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.